Well, first let me say the obvious. Like most of all my fellow laureates, I feel deeply honored by the BBVA award. And I should like to take this opportunity to express my deep appreciation to the distinguished members of the international jury that chose me to receive this prestigious award. This award has a special significance for me. And more specifically, I view this award as an award not just to me, but to the worldwide fuzzy logic community. There is, in fact, such a community, numbering many, many people. The community came into existence in the 70s and 80s and grew to be a rather vast enterprise. Let me give you just a few numbers. 30,000 patents, 300,000 papers with fuzzy in title, and 26 journals with fuzzy in title. So I credit not me for these numbers, but the entire worldwide fuzzy logic community. Now, what I have to say is this, that fuzzy logic community, fuzzy logic has been, and to some extent is still controversial. Some people feel that anything that you can do with fuzzy logic, you could do through the use of other methodologies, especially probability theory. But here in Spain, fuzzy logic was welcomed with open arms. And I want to give major credit to that to Professor Enrique Trias, who is in the audience, back in 1976, who organized a conference called Mathematics at the Center, at the Service of Man. I attended that conference. I had the pleasure of meeting him, and that was the beginning of the growth of fuzzy logic in Spain. And today, Spain is one of the leading countries so far as theory and practice of fuzzy logic is concerned. Furthermore, in Spain, a center has been set up, European Center for Soft Computing in Mieres in 2006. Soft computing is a partnership of fuzzy logic, neurocomputing, evolutionary computing, and probabilistic computing. That center is a unique organization. There is no other organization like that in the entire world, and it is very ably directed by Dr. Louis Magdalena, who is in the audience here today. So one can recite all kinds of numbers and achievements and so forth, but as I said already, the controversy is still there. Why? Well, there are more than one reason. One very obvious one is that the word fuzzy is usually used in a pejorative sense. Reagan was sometimes called a fuzzy thinker, and that was not a compliment. So, why is it so? Because fuzzy connotes imprecision. So when I say fuzzy logic, that would be interpreted as logic that is imprecise. But in fact, fuzzy logic is precise. But fuzzy logic is a precise logic of imprecision. So it's not the logic that's imprecise, but what fuzzy logic deals with is imprecise. So the label fuzzy has perhaps complicated acceptance of whatever fuzzy is attached to. When I chose the word fuzzy in my 1965 paper, I gave quite a bit of thought to how to call classes which have unsharp boundaries, and I couldn't come with anything. Vague is not really a correct label. I knew that fuzzy is going to create some problems, but I could not come up with an alternative, so I took abandons a deep-seated tradition, the tradition of thinking and reasoning based on two-valued Aristotelian logic. If you look at sciences, in large measure, they're based on two-valued logic. In mathematics, I'm a great admirer of mathematics and mathematicians. Everything is true or false. That's the Cartesian tradition. Black and white, true or false, no shades of gray. But the real world is not like that. Human reasoning is not like that. In the real world, almost everything is a matter of degree. So what Fuzzy said, theory, which my first paper was concerned with, was basically a sort of a simple-minded venture into a realm in which classes do not have sharply defined boundaries. So a class with unsharply defined boundaries is a fuzzy set. But it is a fundamental generalization to go from a class which has sharply defined boundaries to a class which does not have sharply defined boundaries. That I see as a fundamental generalization. So in addition to all kinds of applications, some of them very visible. Cameras, most of the cameras use fuzzy logic and rice cookers and other things. Of course, some are much more serious, like the subway city and the subway system in the city of Sendai. But interestingly enough, and I think this is something that is not widely recognized even within the fuzzy logic community, that in coming years, much of the impact will be in the realm of mathematics, and in particular, in the realm of fuzzy mathematics. Now, mathematicians don't like the word fuzzy, so if they use it reluctantly. But nevertheless, that is a trend which I think will be visible, is visible today, and will grow in visibility in the importance in the years ahead. Let me just give you a couple of numbers. There are over 20,000 papers now in the mathematical literature with fuzzy in title. But there is an interesting example, topology. Topology is pure mathematics. Now, I was surprised myself when I asked my secretary to check and see how many papers and books are there on that subject. And so she came up with an answer. There are 111 books with the title of Fuzzy Topology and Fuzzy Topological Spaces. That was a surprise to me, and over 1,000 papers. So this is something that is, I think, an indication of the direction of which things will be moving in mathematics. Why? Because, as I said earlier, it is a fundamental generalization to go from the concept of a set to the concept of a fuzzy set. Now, so what is going to happen, I think, is that in the coming years, is that many, many areas within mathematics will be what I call FL generalized. That is, you implant the concept of a fuzzy set into that theory, and that concept begins to grow. So you have fuzzy topology, fuzzy algebra, fuzzy group theory, fuzzy differential equations, etc., etc., etc. But what pleases me, I must confess, is that this concept of fuzzy set occurred not to a mathematician. I'm not a mathematician. But I have always, as I said already, have been an admirer of mathematics. But occurred to somebody from outside of the mathematics community. And it is always difficult for an idea to be accepted within a field if it comes from the outsider. So I'm somewhat pleased that this has happened. So even though there is still a great deal of controversy, things are moving in that direction. Now, more recently, I have become interested in what I call computing with words. In science, scientific progress is associated with transition from words to numbers. So if you see a paper or a book in medicine written 50 or 100 years ago, there won't be many numbers in that book. Today, books in medicine are full of numbers. What happened? So we moved from words to numbers. Words are respected much less than numbers are. But here's my point. We can go in the opposite direction. We can develop a way of computing with words. So you preciate words. You take words like tall, fast, short, whatever. You take mathematical expressions. You take concepts in economics. You preciate them. And you compute with precisiations of word, round, and natural language. So you acquire the capability to compute with information, with problems, which are stated in natural language. And I think that this is going to be something that will find wide-ranging applications. And I wanted to mention Professor Trillos' name again. He is a person here in Spain who is very much interested and has been supporting of this research computing with words. But in conclusion, I want to say that this award, BBVA award, has special significance for me beyond what I've said already. It comes from Spain. And Spain is a country which has always occupied a warm spot in my heart. From the day I set my foot on Spanish soil, I felt that way, and that's how I feel today. I have great admiration and affection for Spanish people, for Spanish culture. And so I want to thank again and again the BBVA Foundation, and as a foundation, of course, with international settings, but I want to thank Foundation, I want to thank Spanish people for honoring me with this important award. Thank you very much.